We're now going to enhance the robot class and have it do even more interesting things. Here's the first thing we're going to do. We don't want the robot, every time it speaks, to say hi. We want to be able to control what it will say. How are we going to do that? We will tell it what we want it to say here, when we call the speak method. We will provide an argument to the speak method, as we say it in Java terminology, and we may want this time to have it say hey there. We may want to call it another time and have it to say second time robot calling, for example. If we want the speak method to be parameterized, we want to have a parameter here. Now, what do we want to pass to the speak method? We want to pass a string, and this is the one that it will print on the screen. So we will say string message, for example. We specify the name of a variable and then the type of that variable, the fact that it will be string. And then we will replace the message that it was printing before, the default message, with the name of the variable that we are having as a parameter. We save, and let's go and see what will happen now. Remember that every time you make changes, it is not sufficient to just save the file, you also need to recompile the file. It is doing something different, so if you want to run it again, it will be the new compiled version that you want to run. So again, remember, we just have to step through the history of commands, and we do that with the up arrow on our keyboard. So we say javac.robot to compile, and then we will press again. You see, it will always have the latest command. We will call Java robot in order to execute it. And now we have a different output. Hey there, second time robot calling. Perfect. The robot is behaving as we wanted to. Let's make it even more complicated, even more sophisticated, a better way to say it. We want each robot that we're creating to have a name. So here we are creating a new robot object. We want that robot to have a name. How do we do that? We are specifying a variable that we will call name, and it is of type string, which will hold the name of the robot. So now, let me just delete one of these lines. We saw how speak works, and we now understand it pretty well. We want to say that the name of that robot that we just created is going to be something, I don't know. Let's call it Debbie, for example. And then when the robot speaks, instead of just saying hey there, we might want it to be able to say its name. So hey there may still be the message that we want, but we also might want it to say hey there, it's me, and then we want the name of the robot to appear on the screen. How can we do that? We will go into the speak method, and not only are we going to print the message, we are also going to print another string, which will be the name of the robot. So in print, it will concatenate. This is what the plus operator does when applied to two strings. It will concatenate the first string, which is the message that we are passing when we are calling the speak method, and the variable name here. Okay, let's save it, and let's go again and do what we have been doing. We want to compile first, and then execute. And hopefully the compilation will not produce any mistakes. Great. And now we're going to execute. Hey there, it's me, Debbie. Wow, it's working great as we wanted. We are now ready to go and make one more change to this fabulous class that we have just created. And what will that be? We are going to introduce the concept of a constructor. What a constructor really is and many more details about it we're going to talk later. It will be around topic 7, for example. However, we need constructors almost from day one. It is just that to fully understand what they do, we need to know more. How does a constructor look like? A constructor looks very much like a method, both in the way that is implemented, is a part of the class, and also in the way that we call it. The special feature that a constructor has is that it has exactly the same name as the class. So we will write something that looks like a method, but the name of that will be the name of the class. Also, when we're specifying a constructor, we don't specify a return type, as we did with the method. So here is our robot constructor. What do we do inside the constructor? This constructor is what is called after new. Every time we create a new object and we say new name of the class, this name of the class is not actually the name of the class that we're referring to there. It is the constructor of the class. So anything that I specify here will be done inside the constructor. If, for example, I may want to say that when I create a new robot, I will say at that time what is the name of the robot. And how can I do that? I can pass the name inside the parentheses when I call the constructor, which also means that I need to specify that the constructor is able to take an argument, the constructor has a parameter, and then I'm going to say inside the constructor, okay, that value that they just gave me, that name that they just gave me, store it in the variable that I have for storing names. So I'm going to say the name variable that I have so that I store the name of the robot becomes equal to whatever they give me as a constructor argument. So now the line where I was specifying the name is no longer needed, and let's save it and compile it so that we make sure, one, we don't have any compile time mistakes, but most importantly, we want to run it. So JavaC does not return any mistake. Again, I'm using the up arrow so that I don't waste time retyping things that the history of the terminal will give me. As you can see, exactly the same output. This code works exactly like the code before, where we're explicitly specifying the name. Excellent. Let's now take this one step further. Many times in books, in examples, you will be writing it a lot of times yourselves. We like to name this parameter inside the constructor in exactly the same way as the variable that we actually want it to be copied to. So we will give this parameter the name. So now we would have to change this line to be, instead of n, to have name. However, we have a weird thing happening here. We say name becomes equal to name. That doesn't seem to be right. And it is definitely weird. Inside the constructor, name always refers to the parameter that is called name. If we want to refer to the variable that is defined inside the class as a field, inside the constructor we need to say this.name. Again, in topic 7 we are going to say many more details on what this means. However, we will start using it from day 1, and you will see it in many Java books if you happen to have one, or in online examples, and this is why I want to introduce it from now. I will show you that this again runs and compiles fine, so that you don't have any problems. Just compilation, so that you see that there are no mistakes. And then finally, what I would like to do, I would like to just create a different robot, give it a different name and a different message to say. So now we're going to create the robot B, for example. And what name do you like? Unfortunately, I cannot hear you, so I will just give it an arbitrary name that comes to my mind. I will name it Bob. So now this second robot's name is Bob, and when this second robot speaks, so b.speak, it will say something different. It will first say a message which will be my name is, and then, as we know, because of the way we have implemented the speak method, after that will come the name of the robot. We save and we go to our terminal to compile and run our code. Here we compile, make sure we haven't made any silly or not silly mistakes, and then we run. And we see the output of speak for both of the robots.